This video is from The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky, published in 1888, and it's listed in Book 2, but I'll leave the link in the description box below. Please make sure that you give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, hit the bell, comment below, and share on your own social media platforms. This short video will be about Jehovah, Satan, the Red Dragon. The quote, old dragon, end quote, and Satan now have become singly and collectively the symbol of, and the theological term for, the quote, fallen angel, end quote. It is not described, though, either in the original Kabbalah, the Chaldean Book of Numbers, nor in the modern. For the most learned, if not the greatest of modern Kabbalists, namely Eliphas Levi, describes Satan in the following glowing terms. Satan, it is that angel who was proud enough to believe himself God, brave enough to buy his independence at the price of eternal suffering and torture, beautiful enough to have adored himself in full divine light, strong enough to reign in darkness amidst the agony, and to have built himself a throne on his inextinguishable pyre. It is the Satan of the Republican and the heretical Milton, the prince of anarchy, served by a hierarchy of pure spirits. From the Histoire de la Magie, pages 16 and 17, from Eliphas Levi. This description, one which reconciles so cunningly theological dogma and the Kabbalistic allegory, and even contrives to include a political complement in its phraseology, is when read in the correct spirit actually quite right. Yes, indeed, it is the grandest of ideals, this ever-living symbol, nay, apotheos, of self-sacrifice for the intellectual independence of humanity. This ever-active energy protesting against the static inertia, or the principle to which self-assertion is a crime, and thought and the light of knowledge odious. It is, as Eliphas says with unparalleled justice as well as irony, quote, this pretended hero of tenebrous entities who slanderously charged with ugliness is decorated with horns and claws, which would fit far better his implacable tormentor. It is he who has been finally transformed into a serpent or the red dragon. But Eliphas Levi was yet too subservient to his Roman Catholic authorities, one may add, too Jesuitical, to confess that this devil was mankind and never had any existence on earth outside that of mankind. In this, Christian theology, although following lavishly in the steps of paganism, was only true to its own time-honored policy. It had to isolate itself and to assert its authority. Hence, it could not do better than to turn every pagan deity into a devil. Every bright sun god of antiquity, a glorious deity by day, and its own opponent and adversary by night, named the Dragon of Wisdom, because it was supposed to have contained the germs of night and the day. It has now been turned into the antithetical shadow of God, and has become Satan on the sole and unsupported authority of despotic human dogma. And after which, all these producers of light and shadow, all the sun and the moon gods, were cursed, and thus the one God chosen out of the many, and Satan, were both anthropomorphized But theology seems to have lost sight of the human capacity for discriminating and finally analyzing all that is artificially forced upon its reverence. History shows that in every race, and even in every tribe, but especially in the Semitic nations, that the natural impulse to exalt his own tribal deity above all others, to the hegemony of all of the other gods. And this proves that the God of the Israelites was such a tribal God, and no more, even though the Christian church, following the lead of the quote chosen end quote people, is pleased to enforce the worship of that one particular deity and to anathematize all others, whether originally a conscious or unconscious blunder. Nevertheless, it was one. Jehovah has ever been in antiquity only, quote, a god among other gods, end quote. Read the book of Psalm. The Lord appears to Abraham, and while saying, quote, I am the Almighty God, end quote, then yet adds, quote, I will establish my covenant to be a God unto thee, end quote, Abraham, and unto his seed after him, Genesis 17:7. H.P. writes, and not unto the Aryan Europeans or Christians. But then there was the grandiose and ideal figure of Jesus of Nazareth, to be set off against a dark background, to gain in radiance by the contrast, a darker one than the church could have hardly invented. Lacking the Old Testament symbology, ignorant of the real connotation of the name of Jehovah, the rabbinical secret substitute for the ineffable and unpronounceable name, the church mistook the cunningly fabricated shadow for the reality, and the anthropomorphized generative symbol for the one secondless reality, the ever unknowable cause of all. As a logical sequence, the church, for purposes of duality, had to invent an anthropomorphic devil, created as taught by her, by God himself. Satan has now turned out to be the monster fabricated by the, quote, Jehovah Frankenstein, end quote, his father's curse and a thorn in the divine side, a monster than whom no earthly Frankenstein could have ever made a more ridiculous boogeyman. End of this first part. In the next video, we'll continue with Jehovah and what the church now calls the fallen angels, and collectively Satan, or the red dragon. Please make sure that you don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, comment below, make sure that you love yourselves and love each other unconditionally.